to this performance. I was invited by the curators Sophie Hjerl and Ellgaard to participate in a national event called Longings that was covering many places in the country. My first idea was to place it here in Astrid Noack Atelier, and I was thinking Longing was something suitable for Astrid Noack because we have been longing a lot about all these activities we have had the last 3 years that cannot be possible due to construction and due to Corona. But after second thoughts, I found out that after talking with some people, some of my friends and my family, that why don't you make a performance about longings of being a migrant? You are a migrant. Oh, I was aware, I am a migrant, I am coming from Peru, and have been living many years. And then, what does it mean for migrants this pandemic time? And this, I thought it was a very good idea, and then I think to talk about migrants' longings. It was the title of this performance, and the subtitle is Pandemic Paragogies and Heptagogies. And this is very nice. When you write a paper or make it talk in English, it's a very good idea to find some words that nobody understands what the meaning of that. So that makes it very interesting. Andragogy means when you are learning or teaching when you are an adult. And there are two ways of doing. The paragogy is when you do it with other people, who you interchange things, ideas, and heutagogy is when you do it by yourself. You decided, for instance, at one moment I decided I want to know and research and to know everything was possible about Astrid Noack, and I do it this. I set a project and researches, I talk with people, and then I start reading whatever literature, and I do it very seriously. That means all is in Danish, I translate it in English. And this is cover this area. Probably I am the migrant who knows more about Astrid Noack in this country. So this is the idea of learning and teaching in this world when you are a migrant. Now about migrant usually you thought about a logistic, it's you, somebody coming from a country and going to another country. This is the usual way to think about migrant. But usually it's international, you come from Peru and you're in Denmark. But my wife is coming from Jutland. And then I was talking with her, and she told me I have always been a migrant in Copenhagen. And when I go back to Horsens, where she's coming from, then after 1 week, when she comes home, she's talking different. The language has changed, and the children say, "Mother, why don't you talking with this accent?" Sometimes you say things we don't understand, and it was very interesting for me because this is one way migrant, I think also. You're coming from Jutland also. You have always felt a migrant here, huh? Or how is it? You prefer to be in Oslo?
Not really.
But anyway, I was talking with a lady, talking about this migrant, and she's coming from the southern Jutland. And she has a very strong German accent, and she was studying some years ago, was studying literature at the Copenhagen University, and they have very few students, and they usually take a text, and you have to read to the others, and afterwards you discuss it. She was telling me that the teacher, the professor, was not very happy about her accent. it was difficult to understand what she was saying. So she was sent to the special course to learn to talk Danish in the proper way. And this is strange. It's such a little country, you have this problem. But you are also migrant in the sense that you are moving from disciplines. You can, for instance, you are an engineer. I was educated engineer in Peru. I came to Europe, living in Paris. I learned mathematics, came to move from one discipline to another, came to Denmark. I was teaching at the university, and then I was interested in social problems, and then I studied sociology. I moved. And then this changes. You are migrating, taking something from one discipline to the other and learning something different. And this is very interesting, so migration in this way. Migration also can be used when you are moving from your position in society. You are migrating when, for instance, in Peru, I am born very poor in a slum part of Lima with fathers who had never gone to school, and due to some historical reasons I get education, I come to university, and then I was sent to Europe. In this process, I am moving from very poor situation to the middle level to the educated academic position, and then I am moving all these things. This migration have a lot of influence about yourself, your identity, on what you are doing. Then, in this sense, Astrid Noack was also a migrant. She started in Ribe, as 14 years old, moved to Copenhagen, and she, due to some big sister and things like that, she went to study in Vallenkilde and then went to Viborg to help, and then at the end she decided to go to Paris. And there she got education as an artist, a sculptor. She was a woodcutter before, and actually she wanted to stay in France. She was very sad when she was sent back to Copenhagen due to economical reasons. It was economical crisis in France at that time, and that means to be a foreigner, to live in, you have to have money, or you have to have money sent from. Even you could not get sent money because the valuta was stopped, closed. So some people who could afford it, for instance, Adam Fischer, he has to go back to Copenhagen. So when we are in this situation, then arises the pandemic. And the pandemic have a lot of influence to the migrants, as me. And this is why I'm saying that which problems arise pandemic for me? Not traveling. It was a very hard thing. I had not been in Peru for the last 3 years. It was very hard because usually when it's winter in Denmark and people are very crazy about Christmas, I am even going to Peru. In Peru it's summer. Religion plays not a central role. Christmas is for children. And you don't use so much money and energy to buy presents to people who need nothing, actually. Once I wanted to make a movement in the family, instead of keep presents, you go what you have, take one packet and give it to another one. I was very unpopular because this is not the idea of having. I was not only traveling to Peru. In my work as an artist, I usually go to Holland, I go to Portugal, I go to London. This is where I have many contacts. I have living in these places, and then I have no people and work with them. And the third thing I have been missing a lot is the activist part of my artistic work. I am missing very much and this is why I'm going to come back to the activism part of my activities. Well, and in this situation, the internet gives many possibilities, many ways to go and try to get more inspiration for the things you are doing. For instance, I start doing a deep study of Astrid Noack life and art. I make a site about Astrid Noack in Facebook in English, and all material about Astrid Noack is in Danish, so I can make an archive of everything that has written about her has been translated to English. And then this, based on this material, I have a site in Facebook about Astrid Noack when I put every week new information, pictures, things about the good old lady. I have been working with performance. I have made several performances here about Astrid Noack. I have gone to universities, I have gone to high school, and keep making performance and telling about Astrid Noack's work and life. And this, I have made performance with other people here in Denmark, out in the street. With Colonel, I have made many scenes. And then I start thinking about, now I have time to make a research, what is performance? Because I like very much to make performance. And then it means that performance is a very wide area. You can get an education in the United States where you're a specialist in performance as a researcher, as a sociological orientation of art. And this is very interesting because I continue now working with Astrid Noack. I am going to write a book about her, but it's going to be a narrative performance. It's not a book. It's not going to be a translation of her life that has already been done, but it's more presenting here as a performer. Astrid Noack has made two performances. One in the radio presenting an Anta's sculpture, and another in the radio presenting this sculpture, a young man planting a tree. And this is, she was talking in the radio, performing, and you can imagine, huh?
She made two radios.
Yeah, she made two, one with this and one with Astrid Noack, an Anta. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And this is the point of departure, because these are very short, she's performing something. When she's making sculptures, as you see the picture, she's also performing. She's drawing, she has a model, and she's going to process and make an outline, and this is also a performative way of doing. So this is, I am not finished to think about how this book will look like, but it's more to present here. What is interesting with her is that her life and her art are mixed. There is a metaphor of a pendulum. Life and art and life, you cannot separate them. Another thing that was interesting in this pandemic, is that I discovered something. If you go to the Royal Library, to Diamanten, there is a cafe, and if you go upstairs, there is a room. And in this room, you can see, very dark room, several books that are the clenodios of the library, those who are just the very best, since they keep it very carefully. And then once I was with my granddaughter going there and looking, and suddenly it was a Peruvian book. Many things I had doing in performance, I was always looking Peru in Denmark. Potatoes coming from Peru. Quinoa is coming from Peru. The best avocados are coming from Peru, and the best coffee of the world, ecological, is coming from Peru. So this is, I have made performance, Peru in Denmark, and then I made this, but suddenly I discovered this book has been written by Guamán Poma de Ayala. This is not the real book. This is a guy who comes from the royal family, but as a child he was helping a priest, and he learned the Spanish, and he was translated for this priest because he was also a kind of judge in the town, and he learned the language. And then he could translate for and help him, and then after some time, when he got well educated, and since he wrote a book. And this is the book of the first, where he tried to illustrate the book. It's simple. He wants to convince, it's written for the king of Spain, that a horrible thing is happening in Peru now. The old Inca culture has been destroyed, and the Spanish culture, they are stealing everything and spoiling. They think they are Christian, but they are not real Christian. So his idea is to send this book to the king of Spain, so he can, some way, his idea is to try to preserve the two cultures and not mix them. Because in the mixing, everything will be spoiled. The interesting thing is that the original of this book is here in Copenhagen, in the Royal Library. And the question, yes. And the question is how that happened. So I became interested. I knew everybody, when I was in the school, everybody we knew about it. And it's a fantastic book because it's written in ink by hand. And every page has some fantastic drawings. And then all the stories he's telling, and actually he's telling of the Inca culture, the rituals, traditions, and things like that. So I became very interested in this book and started making some research, apparently and the story is that one time there was a kind of book collector who was Spanish, who was going to Spain, and he was buying things and things like that. And there was a rich guy who had a collection of books, and he went there and he sold the book, and he bought the book as a present for the king. Apparently the king, I don't know if he ever saw the book, but they just put it in the library, and this has been there for many years. First, in 1908, two students of anthropology just went around and they look at the book and they say, this is the original. They were not sure. They called for a German specialist who came and looked at the book and says, this is the original. And they tried to find out that actually it was there. So this is a fantastic story, and I am preparing a performance about the history of this book, how it arrived, because it creates many discussions about, they have been reading now books about this book in English, in cooperation with an American scientist, American university. Now you can see the book in internet. It has been digitized, so you can go in and look at the book. Now this one I have has been translated, because when you go and you try to read, in one side is all Spanish, so this is not easy to read, but sometimes he changed to Quechua. So it's a mixture of Spanish or Quechua language, the original Incan language. So this is very interesting. And then they have made research projects on all these things. What is interesting is that many of these things these people have discovered in this cooperation between the United States and States, they are well known in Peru. And they have been well known for many years. And all these things they have discovered, some are true, some are not true. They were at the university in Peru knew that. They had been written many texts, but the question is they're written in Spanish, and these researchers of the knowledge, they don't read the Spanish. So this is very interesting because even you can go and find places where he was born. You can get a lot of material about him. So this contrast between how you investigate things, who has a Spanish Quechua background, and the way how the rich countries do it is very interesting for me. So I am preparing a performance on that. Another thing, thank you, Corona, that I use is I am working with visual poetry many years. My big hero is Joan Brossa. He was a visual artist in Barcelona. And if you go to Barcelona, you can find sculptures where you see the letter A. Once there is a park for children where you have a big sculpture of the letter A was his favorite letter. He made many visual poems with this letter A, playing with that. But they can make sculptures, a big sculpture of the letter A, and then you move to the other side, the letter A has been destroyed. So there are scenes and children can play from the one to the other, things like that. Joan Brossa is initiated my work with visual poetry, object poetry. He was making many crazy things. He was a fantastic and performance. This connection between visual poetry, object poetry, and performance is there. He was also a magician, and he was also, and this was interesting, his life and art was a pendulum. He just was connected. And he is from Catalonia, and his good friend André Tapis, a painter, they decided to stay during the Franco dictatorship. While they all, Picasso, Dalí, you name it, they moved to Paris to escape from the oppression. They stayed and fight against this, Franco forbidden Catalan language in the school. They forced everyone has to talk Spanish and things like that. So they stay and make this fine. Now, Joan Brossa initiated and started working. Visual poetry is very well known in Spain, all South America, Italy, there is this. It's very little visual poetry here in Denmark. And it has been my idea trying to introduce and work more and more and more. And it happens. I have participated in all juried exhibitions here in Denmark. I was missing only one. And usually it was with painters, installations, ready-mades, and things like that. The only one I missed is Charlottenborg. This is the more difficult, and this is things. But I was keeping visual poetry has to come there. I was preparing the best scenes. And then I said, pandemic, I have time to sing, to prepare, what should I show, and things like that. And I sent 5 pieces of work. 863 artists have sent their work. This is also international. And they selected only 38, and one of them is my visual poetry, who is there. As you go at the entrance, the first thing you see is my visual poetry. And this is a great thing. Thank you, Corona. I have never done that. I have not had the time to just think it and say, I have a goal, go there, and then I will prepare it. So, another thing, this is more what we have called heutagogy, these things I do with myself. Then I have made many projects with Paractoti, just collaborating with other people. I have a group in Facebook that is called Global Village Crea Artists. There are around 2,000 members all around the world. And what the idea is to make projects more collective and participative in the internet. They are virtual. And then all the going things, and then I collect this, I make the site, the Facebook, And sometimes I make electronic book of the scenes and will be published. So, but sometimes happens that, for instance, I make, one of the first projects I make is about human rights. Then I got the idea that invite people to take one article of human rights, read it, and make an illustration, and graphical illustration of that. It could be a painting, a drawing, whatever, but make it visual. So when I got 30 of them, small, 30 and 30 centimeters, when I only get a picture of them, and then I put it together and things and show it, then it was fantastic. Very, very good illustrators, painters, even a lady who was making broderie was contributing to this thing. Then I got a contact from The Hague. Amnesty International, they have central office and they want to celebrate a day about human rights, and then asked me if they wanted to show the flag at this big celebration. I say, no problem. I send you the file, I get the pictures, they want the real thing. What? Yes, they wanted the real thing, and said, okay. Then I contact fellows, no! And then everything was in there, and they framed it very nice and was shown in their big exposition, these things. And after a while, people got the idea, all those who collaborated, they wanted to show the flag in their own country. So this flag has been in Canada, Portugal, Italy, and London, and you name it, traveling. I love this project. Another thing, what about time? Oh, that's nice. Another thing is that in this Global Village project, I use time to plan to make celebration of Joan Brossa, the big Catalanian visual artist. And I call it a project Joan Brossa Coronado. In Spanish, it has the meaning, coronado means that you get corona, and the other side, coronado is meaning where the king gets the crown on that. So I invite people inspired by Joan Brossa, come produce a visual poem. And people got mad. I got around 183 visual poems were sent there, and then I collected them, one visual poem per person, and I make an electronic book with 44 visual poems. Fantastic, this poem. Actually, this is incredible, these things. Then, thanks to Corona, I write stories. I usually make a little poem, I write a short story. The story is about, I have traveled a lot, about races, sections, whatever. Many experiences who are sometimes sad, sometimes funny, some things like that. And then they are written in Spanish, so I collect them. And then I have a friend in London, in Manchester, and he's a poet. And he's making poetry in Spanish. And then I sent to him, and he read, and he was fascinated with that, and says, we have to get published in Peru. I never saw about that, but I can understand. And then, thanks to Corona, I got my first published book, and it's Poentos. And Poentos is a word I invited. It's a combination of poemas or cuentos, poetry and story. And this is put it like that with this typical machine, everywhere. In Peru, they don't know this machine. And there are short stories, very short stories. And it starts always with a little poem and things like that. So, then I have little more. Another thing is that in this a section of my Facebook Global Videos is called mail art exhibition. So you make exhibitions sending by mail some postcards, actually, about a theme. It can be water, it can be pandemic, it can be whatever. And then this has been, I have been sending myself many of these. I have time to find out, make some drawings, usually visual poems, and I send to all these places. This mail art is internationally very active nowadays, especially due to pandemic, or especially the facilities, you can do it through internet. There is also a group that is called Interculturality and Eco-Community Public Art and Muralism. So this is an international group with many artists in all the countries. And then I know the director, he lives in Canada, he comes from El Salvador. And then usually they take a town and then invite 10 artists. And this time I have been invited to go to Madrid in September to show object poems, object with poetry, and to give a talk, a performance about visual art. So this is good time. Actually, I have enjoyed pandemic and sad now people are open so much, so I have time to go everywhere. And I was thinking how much time you used to spend all this very same, but it's very funny because you met a lot of people, but now I was close. Then to finish, I have something that I call post-pandemic. What is going to happen now? Traveling. The first thing, I go to Hostepro. This is something I have went a lot. With my wife will follow me and will stay in a hotel in Hostepro, enjoy life, and go and see Astrid Noack, everything what is there. This is one thing. Yeah, now we can do it. And then I will go to Madrid for this exhibition, and my wife says, I will follow you, because we have never been in Madrid, and this, for artists, this is a fantastic place. So, next is Lima. I have not been in Lima for many years, and I'm missing very much. Why Lima? People, friends, family, and special food. To taste a banana that tastes as a banana, to taste a mango that tastes, to taste an avocado, who is enormous, but a fantastic taste. And a mango, you can get a mango big, you can take a little bit of mango, fantastic, and they taste different. Okay, this is another thing post-pandemic. I want to focus on this idea of making a book about Astrid Noack, but it's as a performative narrative. The next things I want to do is to prepare a performance with about Woman Pomadela, about this book. I have now collected a lot of material about this book, but most of them in Spanish, from Peru and from Spain, who are very much well documented, and these things they have been published here in English. And the last thing I want to do is something, this activistic part that I am missing. And I'm being contacted by what is called the Union. This is young people, cultural workers for, it's called BIPOCs. BIPOCs. BIPOCs means black, indigenous, and people of color in Denmark. It's people working with art, and when I read that, and I know many of these people who are there, and try to organize or make organizations, and they contact me because they don't have many artists. Mostly they are dancers, film people, art historians, all of them, and probably I will use a lot of time on the organization of these things. What is very interesting, and I very much, there are many young people with a lot of dynamics. This is something I can contribute. And now the floor is open for questions and discussions and things like that. Thank you very much. And, so, it's good Corona is over so I can relax a little more. Any comments and ideas?
So what you were longing for in the beginning of the Corona, it went in the background, and then there was a lot of advantage.
Yeah.
To get.
Actually,
So it's actually to focus on other things that had maybe a higher value for your life, so to say.
Yes.
Yeah. So what you first expected or felt like a longing was actually maybe just something that was on the surface, because it was not a longing that had so deep roots, so it destroyed your fundament in a way, because then you realized that you could use the time to do a lot of things that opened much more for you than to long for something more.
Yes.
That's how we could. It's interesting, it's very positive. So you were longing for going to Peru when you were.
Yes.
But now you don't feel the same. Now you know you're going there, and during
the longing of Peru was also 2 years ago. My mother died. And I could not go there. This is when my mother, she was okay. She was 96 years old. She was not sick. No. It's only, as the doctor told me, just the machine. They don't work. He's talking like he's talking with the car. Things don't fit together any longer. But she's healthy. But he said to me, we could have done something, but I actually, to be frank, she decided she wanted to die now. Because one morning, she wake up and says, it's going to come very difficult times. Probably it's time to go to the long travel. And the long travel is also coming from Inca culture. When you die, you take the long travel to something better. This is the idea. And then, but she was also very special lady. She was known in the area because she could see usually very bad things. The worst thing she will do when she wakes up in the morning, I have a very strange dream all time long. And usually there were accidents or tragedies or things like that. And most of the time they were true. So they were afraid of her. And then she wakes up one morning and says, we're going to have very difficult times. Probably it's better to take a long trip. And then the sad thing is that I could not be there. I cannot be there before and things like that. And luckily I have a niece who is living in her house and taking care of her. She was at a home place where to took care of her. And they managed to arrange everything as they used to do that. But when I talked with her, her best wishes was it should be Burnett and her special beach. She was a swimmer. Where you used to go when I was a child, go there and throw my dress to the water. This is what she told me, okay? So I had to go to Peru to do that. I have one brother. He's living in the United States. He's younger than me. And for me, my mother got it when she was very young, so she had never been my mother, she had been my sister, actually. But my brother, she was the mother. So when she found out that she dies, he goes to Peru, and she arrives late, and then my niece contacts me and says, your brother wants to bring the rest of your mother to the United States. Her mother. He wants to, and they use a tradition, you may make a little chapel when you put it there and then close it, and so once in a while open and put some things like that. And then she said, oh my goodness, this is a dilemma because her wish was this. Two, she hated the United States. My brother proposed several times she should go to live with her. No Americans. She was a socialist. Mm-hmm. And her idea to live in this country, forget it. And then the paradox is now she's there.
She's in.
Yeah. And I could not tell, my brother was very upset. And I spoke with my niece, how is he? And he was very desperate, and the worst thing will happen is you say no. And says, okay. And then he arranged everything, and then my mother is in the United States now in the Dutch. So many things happen in this period that I suppose I should be there, but I could not. This is. But she's in the United States now. All fighters, socialists. She's there.
Isn't there many socialists in the US?
Yeah, yes. Not in Florida, but
Maybe
okay.
she's doing a good work there, but maybe that's where they need her.
Yeah?
Maybe she's really needed there.
Yes.
And you can still do the ceremony by the beach.
Yeah, yeah. But this is also the stories I wrote. When I come back to Peru, I discover things that I have forgotten. First, the language. When I come to Peru, I talk Spanish. People think that I am coming from United Nations, this diplomat language, because I talk very perfect Spanish. It takes 1 week before I start talking as a Peruvian, with the music, the accent, and things like that. This is, for instance, in Peru, you usually, when you say hello to somebody, you give 2 kisses. And when I forget always this time. My mother was always saying, kiss the lady. So I have to give kisses because we don't used to do that. But in this Corona time, probably it's not. Yes, but this is actually the very long in this travel. I like very much London also. I have been teaching in London, working in London. And my 2 daughters, they like London. So we go there, Austria, only Austria, with 2 daughters and me, and make a trip to London. I decide what art we should look with exhibitions, and there is a lot. My oldest daughter is more a tourist type, so she were visiting many strange tourism attractions. But you don't protest, you follow. And my youngest daughter, she is an art historian, a specialist in art fashion studies from Stockholm, and she goes there and look for clothes, second-hand, antique clothes, and you can get it. And she can use a lot of them. So this is a very, very, I miss that. And only Austria. There is no place for, and we have been in Barcelona also, and there I discovered Lombrosa and Stockholm. My youngest, I studied Stockholm. I love Stockholm because it's still there and live with her and things like that. So, Porto, I have been teaching in Porto, living in Porto, and I have many friends there. And this is when you are an immigrant and you have been traveling a lot, it's very easy to move around and establish contacts and be like this. I believe so.
In a way, when all the lockdowns were in the world, I also have family abroad and been used to feel connected, and if I would, I could go abroad and see them very close.
Yeah.
In different countries, but I suddenly had the feeling that, in a way, I felt even more close to them.
Yeah.
And that was really weird, because, well, not more close to them, but to the whole world in a way, because the whole situation of the world was that we were all in the same boat, we were all in the same situation.
Yeah.
And I think that was really, there was something new happening, a new consciousness or something new, a new feeling of belonging to each other. Instead of belonging because you can meet and see each other, but just a sense of we're here together. That was really strong. I feel, which I don't know if I've never felt that before in my life. With everyone, the feeling of.
Also the feeling of home.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me, now Dhamma is your home. Then I start thinking, no. Probably when you go to Peru you feel home? Say no. Because things have changed. When I left Peru it was 1 million people living there, now it's about 8 million. Incredible. The noise and the dynamics and things like that, and the mixture of people from all the country are mixing there. And this is, what is home? Bourdieu has a concept in Danish called tidsur. Tidsur. So man har sin rum, and when you go to a place and then find out, and the clock is not the same that it was before, then when you leave, things are different. But in other say, going to Peru, and this is the question of friendship. I meet somebody I haven't seen for years, and they start sitting and talking with them, and it is, we have very fast start telling stories or remember things and things like that, as it was the last day I was thinking was yesterday. There is some interconnections that they don't disappear. And you feel it not only talking but in your body. The way you move and you interconnect and you interact. And it's good or bad, I don't know. And this is also, my children are missing Peru. It is usually Christmas time, I go to Peru. My wife, coming from Jutland, she takes to Jutland to visit a big family. And then children can decide themselves if they want to go to Peru or go to Jutland. All of them want to go to Peru. And when I'm in Peru, they are not, this is something, there's a big family. So they disappear in this family. My wife says, should we get Julia, because she used to have, at that time, have to go to bed and we have to read a story for her. You see, forget it. They find out themselves. And they are, but they belong to a group and they are there and they plan everything, and you are not nursing the children. This is the point of video. They take care of themselves. But my mother knows, has still everything. She knows at that time, and she's like, she knew potential conflict, things doing and things like that. She will intervene and arrange things like that. Otherwise, they teach each other, they work each other in some way. The big problem is that when we are going home, it's me who says, now we should go home. Today, now we should go home. And the children say, why? I say, yes, I have to do some things and things like that. He says, Father, why don't we stay here? You can get a job there. Many people come and visiting you and go, and we just can stay here. What about your mother? send a ticket to her and she has to come with us. I don't think she will come. Well, she can visit once in a while. But this is the advantage that they can talk Spanish. And they learn it very fast. The first time they couldn't talk Spanish, the 14 days they were talking all the time. So this is nice. Okay, very interesting. Thank you very much for listening to me. I think I like it very much, this invitation, because it gives the possibility just to collect things that I've been doing and sit, see perspective, and just see forward what I'm going to do. And happy that I did not get panic due to Corona. Thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Oh, yes.